Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Hello, hello. Welcome today for another show of Rebel Hearts. I'm so glad you're joining us today. We have another amazing, exciting guest that I'm going to introduce to you in one moment. But before I introduce him to you, I just want to say thank you again to all of our sponsors for our swag bag giveaway that finished last month. And we were so blessed to have you all come on board and step up and donate your amazing products. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of the companies that was part of our swag bag giveaway. The company is based here in Venice Beach, California, and it's called Bestow It All. The Bestow It All is in Venice Beach, and the co-founders have come up with some new and exciting something in the candle world. This company takes home decor to the next level and created more than a candle, it's a curated experience. Bestow It All and candles are made with eco-conscious materials. Soy coconut waxes with cotton wicks, fine fragrances, and essential oils. The company donates a portion of its sales to the environment and Venice Arts, a community program that provides art education for low-income youth. And for all of our audience members, go online to the website bestowitall.com. That's bestowetall.com. And read about the earth-minded practices of the company and purchase their art and candles. When you check out, use the code REBEL for 15% off your first order. And you will receive a beautiful natural candle with art for your home. We had the candle in the studio the other day, and the whole studio smelled so good. We love their candles, and we love the eco-conscious practices of the company and that they're giving back to the environment and the community. So, but without further ado, let me introduce you to today's guest. And we are actually today talking to Indonesia, to Jakarta, with Felix Finkbeiner. So, let me tell you a little bit about Felix. Felix Finkbeiner is 19 years, and at the age of 9, he developed the idea that children could promote climate justice by planting 1 million trees in every country. With the support of children from over 100 countries, Felix launched the Children and Youth Initiative, Plant for the Planet. That was back in 2007, so 10 years ago. So far, over 63,000 children and youth in 58 countries have been trained in Plant for the Planet academies. As climate justice ambassadors, these children and youth give speeches to adults and pressure them to act and fight for their future. I am so honored to have you on the show today, Felix, and talk about all the incredible things that you are doing in the world. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
And thank you for making the time. You just traveled to Indonesia, and here we are speaking, and you're usually based out of Germany, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't even know if you know that. It was actually one of my German friends, and that was many years ago. It was probably around the time that you started your initiative, Plant for the Trees, that he said, you need to check out this guy. I think he were about 11 or 12 around that time. He's like, he's doing these things. He's planting trees, and he wants to plant 1 million trees. And he has really good chocolate. So that's how I heard about you, from one of my dear friends in Germany.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. So the Germans are spreading the word about you.
I'm really glad to hear that.
So I actually want to start with you where it all started, when you were 9 years old and you had to do a school project. So tell us a little bit about how that idea got inspired.
Well, my teacher had asked me to give a little presentation about the climate crisis in my class. And then when I prepared that presentation on the weekend, I found out about an amazing woman from Kenya called Wangari Maathai. Mm-hmm. And what she had done is she launched a project where, together with many, many other women, she planted 30 million trees in 30 years. And that inspired us that we could also start planting trees. And we had this initial idea of planting 1 million trees in each country of the world.
Wow.
So that's where we set out. And my fellow students liked the idea. So 2 months later, we planted our first tree at my school. And then we invited some other schools to join us and also plant some trees. And then we found an older student who was just about to graduate. And he made a very simple website for us. And this website was essentially just a ranking, a very simple ranking of local schools of who had planted the most trees. And all these schools wanted to outcompete their neighboring school. So it turned into a real competition about who would plant the most trees. And that's how the message spread, first of all, through my state, Bavaria and Germany, and soon later through all of Germany, and then also to some other countries. So that's how we spread initially and got more and more children, youth in many different parts of Germany and then the world involved in tree planting.
So you just reached out to different schools and said, hey, we have this idea to plant trees. Do you want to be part of it? Was that how you did it?
Exactly. In many cases, well, we were spread rather rapidly. So lots of journalists told our story, and we had like lots of schools contact us that wanted to join. So it was I think at the beginning less of one great plan on our part and more just luck and a message that spread really fast with lots and lots of schools joining us and doing exactly what we did.
And then you reached out to schools in other countries, in other parts of the world. Is that right?
Yeah, in a sense, what we started to do is our Plant for the Planet academies. These are one-day workshops which we bring together up to about 80 children and youth, or mainly children between 10 and 14 from lots of different schools. And during that one day, they learn what the climate crisis is, they learn what the global economic injustice is, and they also learn, of course, why it's so important to plant trees. And during these academies, all our participants practice giving presentations so they can spread this message too, and also make plans of what they want to do to spread our message and to help fight the climate crisis. Wow. So at the end of this day, they become our Plant for the Planet climate justice ambassadors with a mission to spread this message and to plant trees. So this is how we spread our message. We've had over 1,000 such academies in 60 countries so far, at which we have now empowered about 60,000 such young ambassadors that spread our message internationally.
That is amazing. And you know what I so love about what you're sharing with me, it's this thing of, okay, let's stop sitting around. Let's not wait to do something, or where, you know, a lot of people believe it, you know, we need to have certain things in place. We need to have this in place or that in place. Most of the time it's finances in place. And you never did that. It looks like you just went out and you just started, and it created, you know, this ripple effect that was connecting children all over the world, right?
Yeah, in a sense, obviously, when we started, we had this goal of planting 1 million trees. We had no idea. I was 9 years old. I had no idea what 1 million trees meant, right? So we set out on this mission without obviously having any of the inhibitions that someone who actually knows how hard this can be would have had. So we just started there.
Maybe it was good that you didn't know, because that way you couldn't doubt yourself and say, oh my gosh, this is going to be way too much work, or this is going to be way too difficult. You know, sometimes, you know, it's probably good to just go in and not really knowing all the details, because then, you know, we start thinking and judging, and that's usually where the challenge comes in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But we actually set up ourselves for an even bigger mission now. Essentially what happened is that after we planted that 1 millionth tree in Germany, and then also 1 millionth tree in a couple of other countries. So essentially starting to achieve our initial mission, we kind of asked ourselves, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? So we had some really big questions like, how many trees are there even in the world? And how many trees can we plant? So we asked lots of scientists, and none of them had any answers to this. Because there had been very little studying on this. People have studied trees in the past, but more on a micro scale, not on this big global system scale.
Yeah.
But then after searching for 2 years, we found a group of scientists at Yale University, and they were willing to take up this challenge and answer these questions for us. They did a 3-year research project, and then they concluded that the world globally currently has about 3 trillion trees.
Okay.
So that's about 450 trees for each person.
Okay.
And they also concluded that globally we have space to plant another 1 trillion trees.
Wow.
So another 150 trees per person. And they are now currently studying what impact it would have on the planet if we manage to plant these additional 1 trillion trees. And these initial estimates suggest that these trees would absorb between 1/4 and 1/2 of global human-made greenhouse gas emissions.
Wow.
Which is incredibly important because the climate crisis is happening. It's happening really fast. And our international governments are not reducing carbon emissions fast enough. We have these beautiful aims, but we're not moving fast enough. So planting these 1 trillion trees could be like a big time joker.
Yeah.
Give us a bit more time to reduce our global emissions. So that's our big mission, right?
Okay.
We obviously don't want to plant these 1 trillion trees ourselves, but we want to convince the world to plant these 1 trillion trees. And in addition to the impact on the climate, obviously these trees would have lots of other great benefits as well.
Yeah.
Like creating hundreds of millions of jobs, especially in the parts of the world, the global south, where these are most necessary, and also beautiful benefits on biodiversity, on water, and so on. So that's our big mission.
That's
1 trillion trees.
1 trillion. And tell us, how many have you been planted? I know it shows it on the website, but how many trees has your organization been planted so far?
Well, together with lots of companies, governments, and organizations, we've been able to plant about 14 billion trees so far.
That is just amazing.
Yeah, so that's definitely just the first step. We need to go a lot further than that.
Yeah. And that was done over the course of 10 years, right? Exactly. So how does, let's say someone wants to get involved with your organization, let's say, or even parents are watching this, say, I have a kid who loves planting trees, who loves being out in nature. I want to become a part, or I want to do one of the academies that you offer. What is the best way to do that?
The best way is to go on our website where you will find a list of all the upcoming academies in the next few weeks, and then you can just join one. And if there happens not to be one in your area, then just write me an email, contact us, and then maybe we can organize one of such academy together.
Yeah.
Or if you want to just plant trees, there's 2 things. Either you do it yourself, go out in your backyard and plant a tree, or what you can do is you can donate, and we will plant 1 tree for €1, so for like a bit more than $1.
Yeah.
And we do that in a big afforestation project in Campeche in Mexico, where we employ about 80 people, and all they do all day is plant trees and then care for these trees.
Wow.
And on average, they plant 1 tree every 15 seconds. But we're currently in a process where we want to expand this even further. So currently we plant about 2 million trees a year, but we want to get to 10 million trees a year to really establish this model project to show people around the world that it's possible to plant trees on a large scale and rather effective.
And you haven't, since you've been doing this for the past 10 years, have you been able to inspire your friends, your family members to come on board and join you and help you with your initiative?
Absolutely. Of course, there's many of my family, my parents, my siblings, and also lots of my friends are also supporting them.
That's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. I want to go back to the academies because from what I remember, the academies are all taught by children for children, right?
Exactly. That's very important to us. That it's not like every other day in school where you get taught by adults, but rather it's other Plant for the Planet ambassadors, people your age, telling you about the climate crisis, about all of these issues, because that really sends the message. If this guy who's maybe a year or two older than I am can do this, then I can also do the same. I can also give speeches and tell people about this. I can also start planting trees. That's a core part, that this kind of peer-to-peer empowerment, big part of Plant for Planet.
Yeah. And and I love that it's all kids. And you have to be how old? What is the age range of your academies or your organization?
For the academies, it's 10 to 14, but there's obviously no upper age limit. After all our ambassadors, after joining an academy, they naturally get older too, and they do other things, but they stay, they remain part of Plant for Planet.
And the whole curriculum, I assume it was all developed by the kids, right? So how did you develop the curriculum initially, where you said, okay, I feel like this is something important that we need to teach? How did you do that?
Well, it obviously evolved a lot over time, and we also work together with lots of other organizations in making that happen. For instance, some of the stuff we do is from Al Gore's Climate Reality project and things like that. So we didn't all create it all ourselves, but kind of adapted these kinds of things for a more younger age. Also, because you mentioned the chocolate at the beginning of the show, and that might not have made much sense to your audience, so I'd like to quickly explain what that's all about.
Yeah, tell us about the Plant for the Planet chocolate, which I will order now that I had you on the show, and my friend told me about, and he said it tasted really delicious.
That's great to hear. Essentially, what happened was that a few years ago, we wanted to start a project with the German chocolate industry. But they didn't want to support us. So then one of our ambassadors said, I think jokingly, let's make our own chocolate and show them. But then some of us took that seriously, and we started looking into it. And about 2 months later, it really got going. And less than half a year later, we had launched our own chocolate called Die Gute Schokolade, or the Changed Chocolate. And what's special about this chocolate is that everyone in the supply chain, or the producers and also the retailers, they agree on foregoing their profit. They don't make any profit with the chocolate, and all the chocolate goes directly to Plant for the Planet. And so by selling chocolate, we can fund our tree planting project. And it's now actually become the most successful fair trade chocolate in Germany.
Wow.
And of course, in addition to being fair trade, it's also carbon neutral. And with every 5 bars of the chocolate we sell, we plant a tree.
Oh my gosh. I am, every time I hear about what you've been doing and you sharing with me this on the show right now, I'm like, it's so incredible how, you're showing people what's possible. And how many people are sitting around waiting for something to change or waiting for others to change, and that you actually took that initiative and said, hey, we can do this, we plant trees. But we are also creating product that is eco-conscious, that is carbon neutral, that is not affecting the planet in a negative way. And which brings me to my next question, and I would love for you to share a little bit more about it. You had this initiative that is called Stop Talking, Start Planting. Tell us what that initiative was about, what inspired you to do that, and what it really was.
Well, it's a campaign that's actually still ongoing, and the idea is that when we're out and about and meeting someone famous, what we do is we cover their mouths and say, stop talking, start planting, as this kind of symbol that on an international stage there's a lot of negotiation happening, but there's far too little action. That's why we started Stop Talking, Start Planting, to kind of show the people the importance of doing things, specifically also planting.
That's awesome. Okay, so there's more picture that will be coming up about it.
Great.
Awesome. So what is so interesting, even looking at what you've been doing, you've been really, really busy besides going to school and graduating high school recently. How has it been for you to travel around the world? You spoke at the United Nations, and to meet people from all over the world as you were talking about what you're doing?
It's obviously a wonderful opportunity to get to know people from so many different countries and work together with people internationally and make these kinds of things happen. But it's also to note that it wasn't just me. Obviously, there's lots of other children, youth that are helping and that are being part of Plan for the Planet. So we share all this responsibility. So not all of the credits, or just a small part of all the credit should go to me. It's been lots of children that have been involved in making this happen.
How was it for you the first time you had to go up on a stage and speak in front of an audience?
I don't think I realized the significance of any of that back then. Obviously, my first presentation I ever gave was in my class, but then soon after, I think within a year of launching Plan for the Planet, I gave a speech in front of like 1,000 people somewhere.
Wow.
At a conference. But it didn't really scare me much, I think, back then. It would have definitely scared me a lot more if I had done it for the first time a bit later, I think.
So it's good to start early with these things.
I think so, yeah.
And you were at the United Nations. What were you doing at the UN?
Well, it was in 2011, which was the launch of the Global Year of Forests. And this is when we, for the first time, called for this global vision of planting 1 trillion trees as a message to spread it out to the governments of the world to get that message out there. And
what do you feel when you were how old at that time?
I think 13.
13?
Around that age, yeah.
How was it for you as a 13-year-old to speak in front of the adults? And what kind of reaction were you getting from them? Was it like, yeah, we're going to be on board over here? How was that?
It's really impressive to see how, even from a very young age, from most of the adults we spoke to, we were taken seriously. Our project, our aims, and our ideas were always taken seriously. It was very rare that we had an experience where we were laughed off or dismissed as children. That was quite impressive to see and very motivating. What young people can really achieve and do. I think far more than most of us would have assumed.
Yeah. And I think you also talked about how important it has been for your organization to not have just a few people do the work, how important it has been to collaborate and to have as many people on board as possible, right?
Absolutely. It's a movement, and it only works because there are so many young people in their cities and their towns all over the world organizing their Plan for the Planet clubs and organizing lots of wonderful things, giving speeches to spread our message, organizing tree planting activities, talking to their mayors or local government officials and lobbying them to do something for our future. It only works because there's so many young people all in their countries spreading our message and being active.
You know, there is a Native American saying that whenever you make a decision, you don't make it just for yourself or your own generation. You make it for the next 7 generation. Like every decision, you consider what will happen or what the effects of that decision are for the next 7 generation. And for me to see what you're doing, it's okay. You know, we're planting trees. We've planted 40 million trees. We are actually taking care of the next few generations. And I think we're at this very critical point in our history where we cannot wait until tomorrow. We have to take action now. That action needs to happen today and not tomorrow or next week or next year.
Absolutely. And I really love that saying. I came across it a few years ago. And I now use it whenever someone asks me to explain sustainability, because I think that's the perfect definition for sustainability. Whenever you make choices, you first think how this is going to affect, the 7th generation after you.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So, since this is a show also about motivating people, because, when I started this show, I had the intention of really getting people motivated to say, hey, there is something we can do in the world to create a better world, no matter if it's, in the environment or social causes or the health system, whatever it is, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones who can step forward and create a change. So what I would like to know from you, let's move a little bit into that direction. What inspires you? What gets you up about your initiative, or even about your university right now? What is getting you up in the morning that inspires you to create that change? And to, I feel like you're so on purpose, you're so in your mission.
Well, there's some big people I look up to that really motivate me. The biggest one is Wangari Maathai. Mm-hmm. She was the reason we initially started Plant for the Planet. Mm-hmm. And back then I only saw the tree planting as what she did, but I later found out all the other wonderful things she's done. Even within the tree planting itself, what she had done was, by getting women to plant trees, she gave them an income for the first time and gave them this sort of independence. And through planting trees, she not only did something for the environment, but she also empowered millions of women in Kenya and also different other countries of Africa. So that's amazingly inspiring, and it's people like her that encourage me to continue. And also, obviously, it's a wonderful experience to get to work with lots of such motivated young people from all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Do you motivate each other? Do you sometimes have a point where, like, okay, let's just have a sit down, let's have a conference call and go and motivate one another to take these next steps or come up with ideas?
Absolutely. Obviously, the line of work we're in essentially can be very demotivating. Mm-hmm. Right? We're doing all these things on a relatively small scale compared to the size of these issues. And then you see what happens at the international climate conferences or the results of various political elections all around the world, and they can be far more damaging than what you can achieve. Yeah. So it can be easy to get demotivated when you try to tackle an issue like climate change. But I guess that would be the case for most of the big also political issues people in the US and in other parts of the world have been campaigning for in the last few decades.
Mm-hmm. What do you do when you feel these challenges are showing up, or you feel like, I'm putting so much work and effort into that, and now there's this counter energy, or when frustration hits, how do you get back and say, okay, I'm going to continue?
Well, I think it's really good to look back at what we've already achieved, and I think it works especially well when you plant trees, because planting trees, it's really easy. You can easily count the number of trees, and you know exactly what you've achieved so far.
You can see it grow, wonderful.
Yeah. Exactly, you can see it grow. You can count, and it's very easy to measure your impact in that sense, and that can be very motivating to look back at what you've already done.
Absolutely. So if you had a message to our audience members where you would go, okay, this is something I want to share with you, that you can make a change, you can make a difference, what would that be?
I think there's this beautiful African saying, which is, if you want to walk fast, you walk alone, but if you want to walk far, you walk with people. And I think that's essentially exactly what made Plant for the Planet successful. That it was set up as a movement where lots of children, youth could join, and lots of people could join all around the world. I think that's the most important part in achieving something successful.
That's absolutely, and it feels like, in our age with the internet and everything that we have, it's an age of connection where we're able to connect. I mean, we're talking today across, the ocean over here. My next question for you is, what support around you has given you the strength, besides the kids you're working with? What support around you is giving you the strength to walk this path?
Oh, there were lots of wonderful people that have made this possible, that have helped us along the way. Lots of parents that were very important. My parents helped a lot throughout those years in making Plant for the Planet possible, but also the parents of of lots of other of our members. And I'm pretty sure, obviously, we were very young people when we started Plant for the Planet and when it developed, that without the help of all these parents and also teachers, it would definitely never have come this far.
Yeah. And where do you see this going into the future besides planting the 1 trillion trees? What are some of the things you have coming up, or some of the things you're planning on doing in order to maybe involve more people or collaborate on an even bigger scale than you have been doing?
So this trillion trees is the big mission, and everything we do is some way towards those trillion trees. So what we do is, on the one hand, we expand our global network to get more and more children and youth to spread our message through these academies. And we have this goal of getting 1 million children and youth to become Plant for the Planet ambassadors and spread our message. The next thing we do is the model project in Campeche in Mexico, where we want to just show people that it's possible to plant trees efficiently and also with a high success rate, because in many of the tree planting projects around the world, what happens is that people plant trees, but they die soon after because they don't care for these trees in the initial months and years when that's incredibly important. So to show that it is possible to plant trees with a high success rate, we now have a survival rate of 94% in Campeche, Mexico, compared to about 22% of average tree planting projects in the area. So that's something we want to show there and get lots of people to visit it and then start their own projects. The next thing we do is we support and fund scientific research, like the stuff I mentioned earlier, to get all the scientific backing to start such a big project as the Trillion Tree campaign. And then what we also do is we use every opportunity to get that message out. And actually 1 year from now, in March 2018, we're organizing a big conference in Monaco together with Prince Albert II of Monaco to get a select group of dignitaries from all around the world to come together and launch the Trillion Tree campaign with us.
Wow. Wow, that is incredible. Whew, I'm just blown away over here. When you have something, when you have something, I feel that is, the bigger picture, it's like so wonderful for me to see how people are then coming together and saying, okay, I want to be part of this, or I want to support you. Some of these kids who have been, because the organization has been around for 10 years, so some of these kids that are, older now, are a lot of them still part of your organization? Are they still doing work out in the world with you?
Yeah, and in many cases, they're the most important for Plant for the Planet because they know exactly what we are about, and they move to different cities or even to different countries when they start studying, and then they use that to set up new Plant for the Planet projects in their new cities and new countries and spread Plant for the Planet there by getting lots of other new young people involved. And also, these people, when they get our ambassadors, when they get older, they start being involved in other types of things, like lobbying for policy change in environmental issues and so on. So our big mission besides the Trillion Trees, or our big hope besides the Trillion Trees, is also that by empowering these 1 million children and youth, they will all grow up, they will go work for different companies or in governments or something like that all around the world. But they will hopefully never forget what they learned at these academies and what they did when they were young and Plant for the Planet members. And then implement these kinds of things in the companies and the governments or wherever they work in future.
And you're already getting into my next question for you, so I love this. Because, when you work at an organization that is conscious, that is, or not work, when you're participating in an organization that is conscious, that is actually doing something good in the world, that is honoring the environment, or even saying, hey, what can we do to help the environment? Because I feel like in our modern day age, especially in the big cities, a lot of kids growing up were in the age of information, with the age of technology. So you see so many kids in front of their laptops, in front of their computer. And I remember when I was a little kid, we always had to go outside. We always had to run around in the dirt. We had to, I remember my best friend's mom would always send us out when we're not allowed to play inside unless we played outside for a little bit. And we grew up going into nature all the time and had that connection. And I had a little vegetable and flower garden that my mom made, she gave me a special space in the yard where I had my little vegetables and flower garden. So I felt like I had a really strong connection to nature growing up, and we didn't have all the technology we had now. Or, you were talking even before the show how not having internet for a while got you to reading books or doing the things we usually don't do anymore because we have internet and technology. So having, growing up with a different consciousness, because these kids are involved in environmental causes, because these kids are doing something to contribute to the betterment of the planet. Do you feel that a lot of them are, I don't know how I want to say it, but do you feel a lot of them are being positively influenced through that, whether, once they're growing up or once they have to go to college or university or learn a trade, they're actually showing up in the world differently of what they have been doing with planting trees?
I really hope so, and I really hope there will be far more environmental consciousness through projects like ours, but also through the bigger struggle by many organizations against fighting the climate crisis. Because there are going to be other environmental issues in the future, and we are also facing other environmental issues. But I hope that through the fight against the climate crisis, people are understanding the value and the importance of protecting nature for humans and for our planet in general. And because of that, it will hopefully also allow us to then tackle all these other environmental issues, like, like bees being one of the big ones, the reduction in our bees population and stuff like that. Things are really important, for our societies.
Yeah. Has working, doing the tree planting for all these years influenced you with your career choices?
Absolutely. I think this is solving the climate crisis and all these other issues like the global poverty crisis is definitely a mission. And I will continue, trying to solve these problems for the next decades, probably. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be working on these things, but I'm definitely gonna be involved in making that happen, as I think most of us are, or many of us are going to.
Yeah. So I hope there's more kids joining your group and growing up with a different connection to nature. So one thing I'm really curious about, with you working with kids all over the world and going to places around the world, do you see, what are some of the things that you witnessed or some of the things that you learned? What can other cultures teach us, or what can other belief systems teach us?
I think the most important thing I noticed when traveling around the world and doing these academies around the world, we really did academies everywhere. And for instance, we had a few years ago, we did this trip where we spent about a month traveling through different countries of Africa. And in 20 days, we had 19 academies that we organized. Wow. And we did them everywhere, from slums to, private schools. And we noticed that regardless of where we went and what kind of children from what background we were talking to, all of them understood the importance of planting trees on different levels in effort to fight the climate crisis, but also, for other things, for food, for water, for all these other beautiful factors. And that was a beautiful idea, beautiful thing to witness, how this message resonated with children and youth from all parts of society, all over the world.
And did you learn anything about the preservation of the environment as you were traveling to these places?
Well, it was really fascinating to witness how different countries go about it, and how different societies are differently conscious about these issues. In some ways, we kind of think of ourselves in Western countries often as the ones who are already, furthest in that regard. And in some ways, it is true with far more consciousness in some Western countries. But also there is this other sort of connection in other countries of the world in a way that we don't normally have it in the West.
And I want to share with our audience what the two of us talked about before we went, live on the show. I was in Bali many, many years ago. That was my high school graduation trip. And usually when you would go to Bali, you would get your takeout food. And takeout food was pretty much your rice and your vegetables. And if you ate meat, your meat wrapped in banana peels, which was, a compostable packaging, so to say. And then there was this trend to looking at the Western world and seeing the Western world as something better or higher or more advanced. And all of a sudden, all this plastic packaging came into Bali. And during the rain season, a lot of the drains were actually clogged because they didn't know what to do with all the trash. They weren't even prepared for all the trash that was being accumulated by the so-called advanced technology or their so-called advanced thinking. And now I went back to Bali last November. There is another movement now to actually return to what they had originally known and how they actually were using packaging such as banana peels in order to preserve the environment and not having all the plastic that we have in our world today.
Yeah, and that's exactly beautiful, and that's exactly what we need to do as part of fighting these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it feels like a lot of, that's the reason why I was curious about what you've experienced going, around the world and meeting kids from around the world, where I feel a lot of the more indigenous culture, they have a different approach to how they handle nature, their different approach to, pollution or, how to connect to the environment. So it feels like, even what we said earlier, any decision we make, it's being made for the next 7 generations. So I feel like we, in a way, it's time for us to look at these teachings, that wisdom, and say, well, how can we incorporate it in what we're doing today?
Yeah. And I think these are exactly the lessons we need to be learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, thank you. So what is the future looking like for you? You're gonna stay, and you're gonna be in Jakarta for a little while?
Yeah, I'm here traveling and looking at a couple of projects and working with some organizations for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go back to the UK, to London, for my 3rd year of my undergrad studies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm studying international relations there with a focus on the Middle East and Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I'm not quite sure what things are going to be like. But I definitely want to use my life in tackling these issues we're facing, especially the climate crisis.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure yet how exactly that's going to be happen. But one big part is obviously always, spreading the mission of Plant for the Planet and making these trillion trees happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you had, we're going to do two separate messages. If you had a message for the children of the world, what would you tell them?
Get engaged, because this is our future. We're going to be the ones who will have to live with the consequences of the problems that we're not solving today. It's going to be our generation. So this is, on one level, we can do this for the environment, but on a very different level, this is also about us. We will be the ones facing the consequences.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And if you had, what message would be your message to the adults of the world?
Well, I think it's the responsibility of all of us to tackle these issues from all generations. I think it's terrible on some level that it has to be young people getting involved in these kinds of issues to tackle these kinds of problems that are not being solved today. But I think that even though the situation might seem dire and we're getting close to irreversible climate change, we are still in a position where we can solve this problem by planting trees, but also by lots of other ways of lobbying governments to be more engaged and do more. So we are still in a position where we can reverse the climate crisis and stop its effect.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that. And what I'm feeling is that, again, it's that energy of we're the ones we've been waiting for. What can we do today to create a better tomorrow? No matter where we are in the world, no matter what our, our culture is, or what our financial or societal status is. What can we do today in order to create a change? And it might be something as planting a tree, or planting a vegetable garden. But it's like, I feel like sometimes we become overwhelmed looking at everything that needs to be solved, and in a way it freezes us.
Yeah.
And just taking one step towards creating change. I think, everybody has that ability. Everybody has a possibility to do that.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree.
So I love your message. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a few more minutes left before we have to wrap up over here. So, again, tell us one more time, how can people contact you? How can they get involved? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Or do you actually have, because you have the website, do you have a contact information, say I'm in the US, or I'm in, I don't know, in Peru or Guatemala, wherever I am? Do you have different people that can be reached?
Yeah, we have children and youth that are involved in their local clubs, doing their things in lots of parts of the world, in their cities. And we can always try and connect you. First of all, after you can join the academy, or we can always try and connect you with our local children and youth to work together with them. So, for instance, one of our most amazing groups of plants of planet in the US is in Seattle, where they've been doing lots of wonderful things there. But yeah, regardless of where you are in the world, you can always join our local projects, or start your own and start your own Plant for the Planet club in your area.
I love it.
Yeah, in regards to what we were saying about the climate crisis earlier, maybe we have some time to talk a bit
let's
more
talk
about the situation we're in right now, because we can easily feel like we're in a hopeless situation right now, right? With the recent elections happening and recent political forces in that regard, it's easy to give up and say it's too late to solve the climate crisis. And to some extent, it's true that we are in a very dire situation. Even without the recent American election, we were already in a tough spot. We have this beautiful Paris Climate Agreement that was signed in 2015, and it's truly valuable because the government set very ambitious targets. They promised that global average temperature rise will not pass 2 degrees Celsius, and they even went a step further, and they said we're going to try and limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
So that's wonderful. But the problem with the Paris Agreement is that the second part of the agreement, and this is where every government made promises of what they're going to do, is not ambitious enough. Because even if all these promises were implemented to the letter, we would still be heading to over 3 degrees plus instead of the 2 degrees plus the government's promise. So we have this important contract with important goals set, but unfortunately, the promises governments made are far from ambitious enough to actually make that happen. So that's exactly why we have to find other solutions. But at the same time, while this might look dire, there's also lots of reasons to be hopeful. The best example for that is technological change. For instance, with solar power. In the last 20 years, the price of solar power dropped by 95%. In 1997, it cost about €7 to install 1 kilowatt peak of solar power. Today, we are at 33 cents.
Wow.
So that's a drop by 95%.
That's amazing.
And it doesn't even look like we're at the end of this development. So it might even go further. We are now, for the first time, for the past few years, we're the first time in a position where renewable energy is just cheaper than conventional forms of energy. And that's exactly why coal isn't going to be coming back in the US or anywhere else in the world, even though in most industrialized countries, governments in some forms still subsidize conventional forms of energy, especially coal, because of coal miners. But coal isn't going to come back because of this amazing development in the price of renewable energy. And we're seeing something similar with electric cars, actually.
Yes.
There was just this recent Bloomberg study which concluded that by the year 2030, electric cars are probably going to be cheaper than comparable conventional cars because of the drop in the price of batteries. So there are these wonderful developments. They're going in the right direction. Sadly, they're not fast enough. That's why we need a bridging technology. We need something that gives us a little more time, and we believe that's to be tree planting.
Yeah.
So that's what all our tree planting is all about.
I love that. Yeah, there is advancement. In the meantime, everybody get in touch with you and start planting trees. Stop talking, start planting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing interview, Felix. I so enjoyed talking to you. I hope our listeners got a lot of information on what they can do personally to help save our environment, to save our beautiful planet. I hope a lot of our listeners will be in touch with you or tell their kids about it, or their nieces and nephews and everyone that they know. Go to the local schools and get in touch with you and join the academies and the ambassador programs and start getting that goal of 1 trillion trees moving even faster.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We're sending it out. So thank you so much. We will actually have Felix's information, the website and everything in our show notes. So go to KristieReeves.com. It will all be there. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time today while you're in Jakarta and doing your program over there to speak with us about the incredible work you've been doing in this world.
Thank you. I'm glad to have been here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful day. And everybody from our audience, thank you so much for joining. Like I said, go out, get in touch with Felix Organization, start planting some trees over here. We can all contribute to creating change. So what are you going to do to help? I want to thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, remember to rebel on.